It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome! Hey, everybody. Welcome in. My name is Chris. This is a thing that I say into a microphone at this point about once a week. Thank you so much for listening. Your hat is awesome. You are awesome for wearing it. Please keep taking care of each other when you're around other people. Please keep wearing a mask. I'm going to talk football very soon, and a lot of it on today's show. But first, I have to talk Harris football stuff, which is to say a member of the Harris football family, the extended universe, the cinematic universe, whatever. So we've had some tremendously good news. Your friend and mine, Sharone Mitchell. Wow. Sharone Mitchell was just named Cook County's next public defender. Now, of course, you all are most familiar with Mitch because for 3 years he's come on this incredibly stupid show and displayed righteous anger at his own money by offering up DraftKings suggestions, only slightly less terrible than mine. But in fact, Mitch's day job has never been DFS, shockingly. Rather, he has been the head of the Illinois Justice Project. It's sort of dedicated to prison reform, that kind of thing. And then the news just came down on Wednesday that Mitch is no longer the head of the Illinois Justice Project. He's about to start a six-year term as the public defender in Cook County, which is one hell of a thing. You all probably, I hope, have a sense of how smart and funny and compassionate Mitch is, something I'm very familiar with, and he's about to bring some of that energy, some of that Ted Ginn, Ryan Fitzpatrick mocking energy to a truly challenging and worthwhile career upgrade. And of course, I've already told him this in private, but I'm going to say it in public. Wow, so proud, just blown away. He's going to be amazing. And unfortunately, as I think you can imagine, it's not exactly going to leave time for Mitch to come on with me once a week and make fun of ourselves. Mitch will say on the show that if you like him, meet better people. There aren't better people. We will miss him on the show. His old Twitter handle, @MitchDon'tLie, is gone. He's a public figure now. We gotta, best not to confuse people on Twitter. But if you want to figure it out, I bet you could figure out a way to reach out to Sharone Mitchell on social media, on Twitter, email, whatever, and let him know. Congrats. Mostly, though, let's thank him for 3 years of incredible laughs, which constantly caused me to lose my breath and sputter like a dingus. And wish him luck, right? We can say that we knew him when. All right, so what has happened in the past week in the stupid world of the NFL? I guess let's talk about that. The main thing that happened over the past week is the deadline passed for franchise tags. So that speculation is over. Skill position-wise, I think we got one medium-sized surprise. It's our guy. It's Kenny Golladay. A couple of weeks on the show, JJ Zachariason and I sang his praises to you. I believe that's technically the 1 millionth time that you've heard something good out of this show about Kenny Golladay. And JJ and I were agreed the best thing for Golladay would not to be get tagged, get away from the Lions. So he will be the prize of the unrestricted free agent market at receiver, and maybe you could argue overall. Allen Robinson was tagged by the Bears. Chris Godwin was tagged by the Buccaneers. No running backs were tagged. Aaron Jones heads out into free agency. Chris Carson heads out into free agency. All these names, we've talked about them at length. If you haven't been listening, go on back over the last month. We've been talking about what we think all of them. James Conner, Kenyon Drake, Fournette, and then like Juju Smith-Schuster, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. They'll all be out there. And it's going to be fun next week. Going to be a pretty fun week. Going to get new homes for a bunch of guys. A lot of hype will be headed our way. And then actually a couple other receivers on Wednesday were salary cap casualties with probably more to come. John Brown, Smoked Ham, the Rebellion. We talked about him as a likely cap casualty with Andy Behrens back on the January 14th episode of the show. And then Emmanuel Sanders, he was on that list as well. Both are on the far side of 30. both still showed flashes that they can still play in 2020, but Brown certainly had his year ruined by injury, and Sanders got a pretty great opportunity with Michael Thomas hurt for as long as he was, and the problem wound up being that no Saints wideout wound up doing anything, especially during those ultra-lean Taysom Hill weeks. Probably not going to fall in love with either Sanders or Brown, no matter where they land in 2021. And then the big shoe that we thought would probably drop when I talked with Jamie Eisenberg on the podcast last week. At quarterback, Dak Prescott. Wasn't a very well-kept secret that Dak would sign with the Cowboys. They had to. Oh my goodness, you saw what the Cowboys looked without him. It's a whopper of a deal. And the Cowboys kind of, I think everybody has said this over the course of the past year, they look like total donkeys. Before Dak got the franchise tag last year, someone leaked, and I mean, my suspicion was that it was the team, that they offered him $33 million a year, but they wouldn't give him a no trade, and that nuked it. So here we are a year later, and Dak gets $40 million a year. He gets the no trade. Plus, he only has to sign a 4-year deal. So if he's great, he's right back at the bargaining table at age 31 and gets even more. I don't know. It's weird. You bump the annual value, you give him the no trade, and then you also give a shorter deal. I don't know. That's Jerry. I think we just nod and move on, and we say that's Jerry. I mean, you heard last week what I think of Prescott. Right? He's good. He can be very good for fantasy. He can be very good at times. He's inconsistent. Not awesome vision, right? He has great weapons. Absolutely deserves to go somewhere for fantasy in the top 10 quarterbacks. No question. I said it last week. Personally, I'm not taking him at QB3 or QB4. And I'm not going to draft QB3 or QB4 usually, but if that's where he's listed, that's not where he should go, in my opinion. I don't know. Like, I don't care that much between QB4 and QB9 this year. They're all going to be kind of the same, and just give me QB9. So that would be the point. Like, I'll draft Dak if I'm wrong about what the market's going to do with him, and he's going to kind of linger because he's not an extreme run guy. Okay. Like, I'll draft him in the 6th or 7th round or whatever, QB9. Cool. He's good and not great, right? I'll oversimplify it. Good, not great. There's nuance there. He's a good player. That can certainly work, but I just don't think we should have to pay steeply for it in fantasy drafts.
Today's kickoff.
Okay, on today's show, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We really sort of have been prepping you all along for free agency, and that's coming in a hurry next week. There'll be tons to talk about then. But on this show, I don't know. I just prefer not to run down the rumors of which team might sign which players. Because, man, we're going to know soon enough, right? So we'll talk about it then. So instead, let's lay some more groundwork. To do that, first of all, I'm going to do a film futures, or whatever it's called, on Lions running back DeAndre Swift. I'm going to play a listener mixtape and continue my promise to share some music with a music digression. And then my guest will be a new one, but someone with whom I expect you'll become more familiar. It'll be Patrick Murray. Patrick is running our college scouting program on the Harris Football YouTube channel this spring. Going to look at the skill position NFL draft players. So I'm very excited about that. And to whet your appetite for what's coming, we actually just already posted the Najee Harris video. You can find it at harrisfootball.com. It's really good. It's not going to take that much of your time, and it'll get to what's really good about Harris. We'll talk about that a little bit here as well. But we love for you to be able to see this stuff with your own eyes. We're going to talk today about a couple of running back prospects, a wide receiver prospect that Patrick has already been looking at. Frankly, I'm kind of just looking forward to hearing about Patrick himself as well. I'm looking forward to it in general. And believe me, I do not take you for granted. I really do appreciate you listening today. I am recording this podcast wearing Felix Gray glasses. I would be doing that whether they were sponsoring us or not, but today they happen to be sponsoring us, which means that I will talk about my Felix Gray glasses. Before I got them, I was on the computer a ton, on screens all day, and I had headaches, and it sucked. And if you know what I'm talking about, especially after a year of being locked at home and looking at nothing but screens, if you get headaches or blurred vision or dry eyes, it might be too much blue light from screens. Our eyes just aren't equipped to handle it. Every pair of Felix Grays filters out more blue light than any competitor's glasses. You can get them in prescription. Mine are in prescription. You can also get them not prescription. They always have free shipping. They always have free returns. Also, if you look at screens in bed and that maybe messes with your sleeping a little bit, check out the Felix Gray sleep glasses. I got a pair from my mom, and she really swears by them. She loves them. Filter out that blue light. My eyes really do feel better. Tons of great frames to choose from. Really affordable. FELIXGRAY glasses.com/Harris. Use that URL. Lets them know where you heard about them. FelixGrayGlasses.com/Harris.
Harris watches film, thinking about film futures or whatever it's called. Yeah, we know your team sucks. See, Harris has your back. Looking to the future, gonna get you back on track. Film is what he's got. No need for YPC. Film is what he's got. Doesn't Josh so trashy?
Yes, in fact, let's do this. It's time for some Film Futures, or whatever it's called. Let's talk some DeAndre Swift, a popular choice for a Film Futures. I guess by popular, I mean that Travis Souders, whom many of you know as the funny dude who writes the newsletter for this here show, he thought it would be a good idea. And I think I am largely known as a DeAndre Swift enthusiast. You've mostly heard me say good things as the season was going along, I think. The production wasn't always great, but mostly I think I've said I really liked him, that he kind of has that thing. But it was time to see if that would hold up upon a rewatch. So Swift had 114 carries, he had 57 targets, and I just rewatched them all. I would be lying if I said that I broke down his footwork on every single run. You know, a lot of them you're just sort of skimming past them because, you know, what's a guy supposed to do? But I think upon watching, I have gotten my opinion on DeAndre Swift. You know, with the Lions, with the team that's letting its entire receiving core walk, potentially, with a team with Jared Goff under center instead of Matthew Stafford. At least acknowledging that all that stuff is going to change, and we don't really know what the situation is. But I think I've got my opinion about his ability worked out, and we will talk about the rest of it afterwards. I mean, it wasn't a great start if I go chronologically through Swift's season. Lions fans, you know what I'm talking about. Week 1 at home against the Bears, 2 hellacious drops. One of them at the end of the game, wide open the end zone, would have won the game, dropped it. You know, we're going to talk about Anthony Lynn as the play caller in Detroit now, the new guy, right? You heard Jamie Eisenberg talk about it last week. You know, that factor may wind up being the foundation of why people like Swift in 2021 as a compiler. And the play caller certainly matters, but you know that I'm not going to tell you that's the main thing that matters. All right, so anyway, if we look back on September, if we have to be honest, like as much as I'm going to come across positive here on Swift, the Week 1 performance may have doghoused him a little bit. And he played a good amount in Week 2 against the Packers, but his stats mostly came in a blowout. His snaps largely came in a blowout. Barely played Week 3 against the Cardinals, though he did have a screen pass that he didn't see coming that bounced off his back. That was pretty embarrassing. He scored on a wheel route Week 4 against the Saints, but still was a clear understudy, and then came the Week 5 bye. And, it had been rough if you had spent an early round pick on DeAndre Swift to that point. And I don't want to say things were amazing thereafter, but at least whenever there was a rotation that involved the baby horse giraffe, Adrian Peterson, and the Whizzinator, Kerryon Johnson, Swift was a part of it. He had a long run on his first carry against the Jags where the seas pretty much parted. He went for 54 yards. And if you look up that play on Game Pass, I mean, you're not going to be completely blown away by his long speed. Saquon Barkley scores on that play. Dalvin Cook scores on that play. Swift doesn't. He kind of knows right away that he's going to get run down from behind and the side, like the guy had an angle on him. And he does. The next series gets a couple of carries from the goal line, converts on the second one. You know, the ride didn't get unrocky from there. The usage did get more consistent. And, I mean, there's no question the Lions weren't very good and were behind, right? They just trailed a lot. And through the middle part of the season, the production from Swift, it wasn't that great. Watching it all back, what I'm seeing is Like, Swift was a hard guy to figure out as a college prospect. We had different experts on this very show who kind of just disagreed on him. You know, some thought he was elite. Some thought he was kind of a weirdly overrated guy. In the Almanac, I compared it to Miles Sanders, which, I mean, I think, you know, coming from me, that's a compliment and a curse. And I thought maybe at the upside there was some Dalvin Cook. I mean, basically, we were all over the map. You know, stylistically, even by this point in his rookie season's tape, we could say, I think we got it. We, like, a lot of that can go away. We don't need to worry so much about what those comparisons were like. Swift is a glide guy. More often than not, he takes the handoff and he doesn't run as hard as he can. He glides 1 step, 2 steps. He's looking for an excuse to change direction. And then off of that change of direction is really, really good. And if he played behind an awesome offensive line, he might really pop on the stat sheet. He's not really like the... I'm trying to kind of make a distinction between what I mean by change of direction. He's not like the Arian Foster, all I really have in me is one cut and then I'd better get downhill, but it's a really, really, really good cut. Like, that's not really so much him. Swift can string together moves. He can cut off both feet. He can cut multiple times in a run. He's not really naturally programmed to hit it hard, though, and I don't know, maybe that's okay. There are definitely some physical plays on Swift's rookie film when he squares up a defensive back and, you know, push the guy back with direct contact, but you also don't really see him break out of really much of anything with, like, leg strength. He's not tiny-boned, but he's not a bruiser. So, okay, that's kind of the first half of the season. So then week 10 gets here, and the Lions tell everyone. It's public. We talked about it on the show. Swift is our dude, and he's the starter, and they prove it. 21 touches, 149 scrimmage yards against Washington, whose defense turned out not to be, like, terrible by the second half of the year. There's a cut that he makes on a screen catch that's marked 12:53 of the third quarter in that game when he's in the open field, and he's running pretty hard straight ahead, but not as hard as he can because he has linemen with him, and the screen worked. So, you know, he had a bit of a convoy, and it's a joystick change of direction. 1 foot, no speed lost. Defensive back didn't have a great angle on him anyway, but he goes flying. It makes you realize why Swift floats like that, because he legitimately can cut off of either foot and just explode. And we didn't get to see him do it enough in 2020, no question. But it's there. You can't fake it when it shows up. I think he has that ability, and he'll have a full offseason of being a pro and training like a pro and avocado ice cream. And, you know, I hope there's more of that awesome cutting in his future. And then in that same game, oh yeah, Harris, like, he never runs anyone over. Check out his 15-yard receiving touchdown. Cornerback Jimmy Moreland squares him up, and Swift mows him down and scores. But again, Moreland's 180 pounds, soaking wet. You know, power isn't the prime component of Swift's game. He's also not a pure breakaway guy, you know, but he can definitely jitterbug. So, okay, great week. You know, come away. He had been in a midseason huggy. He'd been my guy to trade for. You know, I'm, of course, naturally, you know me, completely patting myself on the back. And he winds up suffering a concussion, presumably in practice the next week. He misses week 11, Thanksgiving week 12, week 13. He's back week 14. And by the end of that game, yeah, it looked like mostly he'd gotten his gig back. Week 15, Titans, very good statistical performance in your fantasy semifinals, but fumbled one away, taking a hit on the 1-yard line, and then had a lot of Basura stats in a blowout loss. Week 16 against the Bucks, he had another great cut, 7:05 of the first quarter, like a zip and then a zip again, also lost a fumble in that game. And then once again, Lions are getting killed. So it's like, it's sometimes tough to tell, right? Week 17, I don't care that much. Except this year, I will, right? Because 18-game season. But it is nice that his final carry of the year was a 2-yard touchdown. So in some ways, I don't hate my Miles Sanders comparison because Swift is a really good athlete too. And that's kind of, you know, the main attraction of Sanders is, man, what an athlete. But in a few other ways, I sort of biffed it. I mean, it's not a good comparison. It's not. Sanders has breakaway speed. I think Sanders would win in a foot race against DeAndre Swift. Breakaway speed's good. You know, it might not rear its head every single week, but when it does, you tend not to care that the running back's fantasy production mostly came on one big play because one big play, that's good. We like those. And Sanders is going to make those. I'm not telling you Swift won't also make big plays, but he's just not one of the, 10 best long speed running backs in the league. He's just not that kind of guy. Also, I complain about Sanders' vision. I think by now, it seems pretty clear to me that most of Swift's game is built on vision. If he doesn't see it, he's going to be in trouble because most of his carries are that delay, burst variety. And you really have to see where the holes are in order to do that. This isn't really like the zone blocking, drift outside, wait for a lane, and then explode. It doesn't take as long. It's basically like get the handoff, run half speed for your first couple of skipping steps, and then pow. And DeAndre Swift has the pow. He can really change directions. I don't think, for people who are really into next-gen stats and determine everything, it's patience is going to be what? They determine that by time spent behind the line of scrimmage. They time how long it takes you to get across the line of scrimmage. Yeah, that's not what he's going to be. LaShawn McCoy is like the right area. He's not quite LaShawn McCoy yet, but that's the kind of thing that he is. I like Swift a lot. I'm not sure I think he's a superstar, but I think he's going to be very good. If he's kind of on the LaShawn McCoy aisle of the grocery store, but not quite as good as Prime Shady, at least not from what we saw in 1 year, like 80% of Prime Shady, that's still really serviceable, really good. So, the last part is that, as I said, I can already tell if there's going to be hype on Swift for 2021, I know where it's going to be. He's going to have 100 catches. Oh, don't you know Jared Goff's the quarterback? Don't you know Anthony Lynn is his play caller? 100 catches. And maybe, I don't think it's a reason. Situations are not reasons to draft players. They just aren't. Or at least not prime reasons. The receiving core without Golladay, maybe without Marvin Jones, it might not be very good. There are certainly dots to connect there. I don't know why you need to listen to analysts for someone to tell you that. You can just look at the depth chart yourself. Might be a lot of catches there, right? Really hard for me to say, and that's why DeAndre Swift should be a top 20 overall pick, because I'm positive there's 100 catches for him there. Because if you want to tell me there are 100 cheap Anthony Lynn screen passes out there for Swift, because who else is there? I'll tell you, what if the Lions are 0-17 and score 13 points a game? Does that sound like amazing stuff for Swift? Who else is there works every so often? David Montgomery feasted on it for a month at the end of the year and is going to get drafted high as a result. Usually it doesn't work out so great. But I will say this. It's not like the Lions didn't throw to Swift this past year. In fact, as you kind of watch the plays go by, I was surprised how often Swift was the primary target on some non-screen route, and clearly Matt Stafford has the ability to check it down and hit him on a screen. It's how he got his nickname on the show, Stat Padford. Swift had 57 targets on 369 total snaps. Cool. Alvin Kamara had 107 targets on 636 snaps. Austin Eckler had 65 targets on 396 total snaps. All exactly the same percentages within like half a percent of each other. Can Swift get to 80, 90, 100 catches? Sure. And I know that because if he'd played 600 plus snaps last year, he'd have done it. At least at the same ratio that he was doing it at, right? And that's with Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson. And that's, the Lions were getting crushed a lot of the time, and they might get crushed a lot of the time this time too. And sure, there are screens available for running backs when you're getting crushed. If you think that's going to happen, okay, I'm not going to argue. Swift has had some shaky hands moments and some good hands moments. He's going to have to clear up the concentration drops for sure. Definitely, his catches should go up. They absolutely should. That is absolutely logical. It's also not the smartest of reasons to just go, boom, money on the barrelhead, pick 16, there's DeAndre Swift. You also want him to be a very good player. And the good news is, I think he is. We're sponsored by Upstart. These are tough times. It's been a rough year. Everybody's looking for a way to feel more financially secure. If you feel trapped in a cycle of high-interest credit card debt, Upstart might be able to help you. They know that you're more than just your credit score, and their aim is to make lending rates more fair by also factoring in stuff like your education and also your job history. You don't have to have a diploma to use Upstart. In fact, it's fast and easy to check your Upstart rate. Plus, it's totally online. You don't have to actually go to a bank. You can see whether consolidating your credit card debt with Upstart will save you money. All you have to do is go to upstart.com/Harris. Checking your rate will not affect your credit score at all, and you may discover it could help. If you decide to apply, and if you're approved, most people get their funds the next business day, which clearly could come in handy. Over 400,000 people have used Upstart to pay off credit cards or meet their financial goals. Upstart gets a 4.9 out of 5 rating on Trustpilot. If you are feeling frustrated, if you are looking for a way to feel more financially secure, this really might help. If you could use that help, go to upstart.com/Harris and find out how low your Upstart rate is.
Today's mixtape.
We have reached the musical portion of this week's program. First, let's do a mixtape. I've been sitting on it for a little bit. It's time to play it. I have to admit, I sort of don't know what to make of it. I mean, it's wonderfully done, and I think it would be wrong of me not to unleash it upon the world, but it also is time for me to come clean. I'm not a Hobbit guy. Apparently, this is from the Hobbit films. I don't know, am I just generally not a franchise movie guy? I don't know. The Tolkien thing has always sort of left me cold. Never really read the books, didn't see the movies. And so this song, this mixtape, is an homage to something that I just don't get. I'm just dumb, right? But I'm betting there will be thousands of people who are like, this is the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. Harris, you're an idiot. And that will not be the first time that I have heard that statement. So Ben Room is the writer of this ditty. He was the writer of the Underscore Baron song, the Moody Blues, old throwback song for Jimmy McCormick in 2020. And Ben's buddy, Charles Darius, is the singer of both of those mixtapes. I am told this is an adaptation of The Misty Mountains Cold, and I will have to take Ben's word for it. Again, this is my failing. I am too dumb to get the reference, but I want to play it so that smarter people than I can enjoy it. Ben and Charles, thank you. Keep it up. We love having you on the show. Here we go.
Far beyond the box score, I'm told, in game past deep, when Sunday's old, there is a man who watches fill yacht possum sleeps on his pillow. Hey Harris, tell us who played well. Was it just luck, or was it skill? Pass catching gold, or murder holes? Patrick Mahomes or Tannehill?
Harris's music digression.
Indeed, the music continues. I hope you enjoyed that mixtape. This is an old song that I'm going to play you a piece of. The song's from 2008. Were any of you born in 2008? I can't remember how old the audience is. I have to admit, I didn't live in Austin at the time, and I only vaguely remember the band What Made Milwaukee Famous. That's the name of the band. And they do hail from Austin, which was my hometown for a fair amount of time. And then by the time I was doing my billion hours of concert going in the process of writing my book, War on Sound, a lot of that concert going actually taking place in Austin, well, at that point, What Made Milwaukee Famous had kind of stopped playing shows. I remember thinking they were good. I remember being aware of them. I remember this song vaguely. I don't really remember it that well, but I had it. I was lying around. And so, this segment is usually new music that I'm listening to, but it's also sort of generally meant to capture what I'm listening to right now. So if it's an old song, it's an old song. Shut up, Harris. And the song is Sultan. It's by the band called What Made Milwaukee Famous. I think it's probably the thing that I've listened to most over the past couple of weeks. I learned it on the guitar. I made my friends listen to me play it over Zoom. I bought the full record. The full record is called What Doesn't Kill Us. It's really, really good in general. So I think basically what I'm saying is, okay, it's old, but it's still really good. And it's not the usual music digression, but I still think if you like it, when you listen to it, go to Bandcamp. I'll put the link on the website and to their Bandcamp and in the show notes as well. I think it's personally always the best place to buy music if you can, because then the artists get the highest percentage of it. And, if you like it, pay for it. Pay for a little music. Again, the song is called Sultan. The band is What Made Milwaukee Famous. And now a lot of you are probably going, duh, we loved that song 15 years ago. But I only really love it now, so I'm playing it for you now. Here's a little bit of it.
I've had less than my fair share of lucky breaks and enough of this fooling around. I got one last chance to get rid of my past and bury it deep in the ground. And no matter what you try, man, you're never gonna tear me down when the only blame you cast is your own. And your only guarantee is your fear of the unknown. If you don't cut your losses before you get lost, they're never gonna leave you alone. My best bits of advice I'll repeat only twice. After that you can fend for yourself. If you think that your shoes couldn't find better use up to just about anyone else, you need to face off and fold or deal with the hand you dealt. Make up your mind. Are you in? Are you out? I have no patience for your impetuous doubts. The only blame you cast is your own, and your only guarantee is your fear of the unknown. If you don't cut your losses before you get lost, they're never gonna leave you alone. No.
We're sponsored by First Leaf, the wine club from which I have been drinking wine during quarantine. We all know that trying different wines, it's one of the best ways of finding new favorite wines. Yet sometimes when I buy a random wine I've never tried, it doesn't work out that well. Being a First Leaf wine club member, which I am, is like being a VIP in the world of wine. I regularly discover new stuff I really like. Just last week, I found a Fog Break Pinot Blanc. I loved it. Entirely because of First Leaf that I discovered it. They send me hand-picked wines every month that are selected because of my exact preferences. They also save you up to 60% off of retail. The magic is in the algorithm. You might have heard me talk about it before. It just makes First Leaf better. They send me wine, I rate it, and because of collaborative filtering, they make even better recommendations, and I absolutely swear by it. Love it. And if you like wine and want to learn more about wine, seriously, try First Leaf. Discover new wine like a VIP by becoming a First Leaf member. Join today. You'll get 6 bottles of wine for just $29.95 plus free shipping. Just go to tryfirstleaf.com/Harris. That's 6 bottles of wine, $29.95 and free shipping. Tryfirstleaf.com/Harris.
Today's guest.
And today's guest, very happy to have Patrick Murray on the program. You can find him on Twitter. Please do follow him at Pat Murray Sports. I'm going to say he's Patrick Murray of Harris Football because I guess, technically you are. How does that feel? What an honor, Patrick, to be of Harris Football now.
Oh, yeah, it feels great. I guess I'm officially a yacht possum now.
Which you had no idea what that was. Like a month ago, you didn't know who I was. You didn't know this damn yacht possum story. Oh my God, the lore that we have to suck you into now. It's disgusting. I'm sorry.
Oh, I can't wait.
So, all right. Well, I mentioned at the top of the show, but we'll elaborate upon it now. Patrick is going to be our eyes and ears for these college skill position scouts on the YouTube channel. And in fact, I also mentioned already that on Wednesday, we posted Patrick's first video in which he's breaking down film on Najee Harris of the national champion running back, much hyped, much lauded. Of the two Harrises, I'm very, very keen on Harrises in general, you can imagine. Of the two Harrises that were running backs at Alabama, this is the one that people are probably most excited about, with good reason. And so, I mean, like Patrick, we talk all the time on the show. It's kind of the foundation of everything we do. It's why we started a YouTube channel. I mean, we say film don't lie, and of course sometimes it does, but I think it's better than to look at film, especially for college guys, where the NFL players are just always going to stand out and look like superstars. Being able to see what they do in their game film is crucial relative. I don't care about the stats that much.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously the stats, especially if you have a guy that's playing for Alabama, where they have, the best offensive line in the country and the best receiver in the country and one of the best quarterbacks in the country and the best offensive coordinator in the country. So, all that, the stats could, you don't necessarily know what they mean. But yeah, so I think watching the film is really important, and, seeing what he actually does and is, and how that may translate to the NFL. And I think for Najee Harris, that absolutely will translate. And the first thing that just pops out about him is the combination of size and athleticism, the kind of the burst and the quickness that he has to go along with being 6'2" and 230 pounds, and having the ability to either run you over or, elude you very athletically, is something that stands out right away about him.
So I'll get to more questions that I have for you about Harris, but I kind of want to talk about you a little bit, so the folks get to know you a little. Like, what's your? I know you're doing a lot of calling of games for FIU, lots of different sports. You're like an on-air personality who probably will be ruling SportsCenter in 20 years, and we can say we knew you when. How did you get into the film watching part of evaluating football players?
Yeah, so I went to the University of Tennessee in college, and, Neyland Stadium, 102,455 people, kind of fell in love with college football there. And then I got a job at the NBC affiliate there in Knoxville. And so stuck around and, started part-time and eventually worked my way into being the main sports anchor there at the local TV station. And, I covered Tennessee football, and I had always been interested in the strategy behind the game. And if you've ever seen the show NFL Matchup or heard of it, I always loved that show. I think even from the time maybe when I was in middle school or at least high school, I always loved that show and like really the details of the game. And so when I started covering Tennessee, I, got more into it and had access to talking to some of the coaches. And the thing that really got me going was Tennessee got a new coaching staff. Butch Jones took over in 2013. And at that point, Tennessee had always been like a pro-style offense. And so Butch Jones was more of the spread, zone read type offense. And so everyone, Tennessee fans didn't quite understand, how that all was going to work. It was different and foreign to them. And so that's kind of how it started for me. And Tennessee's offensive coordinator at the time, Mike Bajakian, was great to me. We every Wednesday or something like that, he would have his media availability, and then I would kind of hang back and wait until he was done, and then I would get to talk to him one-on-one after, off the record, just kind of me and him chatting. Sometimes I even brought my laptop and would be like, hey, I saw, what's going on in this play? And he would like explain things to me. Mm-hmm. And so that's really how I kind of got started, was just those conversations with Mike Bajakian after practice and learning so much more about the game. And then I started a segment called Film Study at that local TV station, where it was just every week during football season, I took one or two specific plays from the game, from the Tennessee game that week, and said, okay, this was a big play, and here were the details that happened in this play that I was able to figure out based on watching the game over and over again, or watching the play over and over again, and then talking to the coaches about it. So that's how I got started, and then I just continued to get deeper and deeper into it, read more and more, found some really, in-depth football websites and to read about. And then this past fall, I got into the Scouting Academy, which has been really great for me. It's, you kind of learn how to scout players individually and stuff like that, position by position. So I'm still going through it now. I haven't finished it yet, but that's been something really great for me to continue to expand my knowledge.
Very cool. And so you're very much coming at this from the same perspective that we do on this show. And, people love Brett Coleman, who's a friend of mine and a regular guest on the show, and has his own great YouTube channel. And Sam Gold, same thing, valued contributor plus a great channel. And so we're all kind of speaking the same language, even if we sometimes put different names on them. And so, just having you doing this is I'm fluffing you up because I want people to go to the channel, but honestly, it's the Najee Harris video is great, and I think people will really learn a lot about what we're looking for when we're being impressed by running backs. And I know, I'll tell you right now, Patrick, I have a hard time myself after having done this for so many years watching college film relative to the pros, because they just, again, NFL players almost can always do whatever they want statistically in college football, and sometimes they can do whatever they want anyway, right? And so even on film, and so to be able to tell the difference between, okay, no, that's a special quality and it would translate, is incredibly invaluable. And along those lines, let's go back to Najee Harris. You did a good job on the video. I'm actually going to throw a curveball at you because I want people to watch the video and look at examples of what Najee Harris does really well. And I think you're right. For me, what stands out just upon watching the plays that you compiled is, holy cow, that guy's 230 whatever pounds. Like, that guy moves. Yeah. Might not be super, super long speed, but really moves laterally well and jumps over guys and just is really athletic for his size. So I'm going to flip it around and ask you the question, like, what do you think maybe is a limitation for Najee Harris in the NFL? If he's a late first round pick, let's say, maybe that's where the consensus has him, or maybe, that sometimes winds up not happening and then they go in the second round instead, but he's probably going to be the first running back taken. Like, he's clearly not considered a top 5 pick, which means he doesn't have something in his arsenal. How would you describe what that is?
I think you mentioned it briefly, like you said, the long speed. I think it's that he doesn't really seem to have that top end speed. Where I think a good example stats wise is he led the nation in 10+ yard runs in 2020, but then as you go to 20+ yard runs and 30+ yard runs, he starts falling further and further down the board there, and so he doesn't really have the big play speed that maybe a Travis Etienne has or some of the other guys. So there are other things can factor into that you can look into, like, how well are the Alabama receivers blocking down the field or things like that, to get him to those big plays. But I think that's the main thing that's a knock on him, is that he doesn't have that elite top end speed to really hit the home run.
Right. And I'll say, like, I just spent 20 minutes on the show earlier looking at DeAndre Swift's rookie tape, and he doesn't have it either. Like, we can still really, like, and plus, let's not forget the fact that Najee Harris weighs 20 pounds more. He's a thundering moose compared to Swift isn't really running over a lot of guys. So you can certainly succeed without the ultra top high gear. And I think we would probably both, although I'll just phrase it as a question, like, from watching the video, I don't think you have a lot of concerns that Harris would have to always do the Derrick Henry and come off the field on third down.
No, I think he's a good pass catching back. I didn't notice anything, detrimental in terms of his pass protection. I think that's a thing that rookies are always, going to have to improve upon coming into the NFL, but I didn't see anything glaring there that was an issue for him. And I think catching the ball out of the backfield is a strength of his. So I think he would be better than Derrick Henry in that regard. And so I think he could be a 3-down back.
Right. And probably there's no such thing anymore as 3-down back, but like as close as it gets, right?
Yeah, as much as you can be in today's NFL.
Because, and especially in their rookie year, like we just talked about Swift, I mean, the best case is usually there's a changing of the guard at some point. For Swift, it was like week 6. They were like, all right, kid, you can have the job more. And then they really gave it to him week 12 and he proceeded to get hurt. But like, or 10, maybe I said, but 100% understand what you're saying. Like, we have to see where the landing spot. He doesn't seem a particularly scheme-dependent running back. He's a probably power back with some wiggle, and that's usually not gonna. He could run zone. We've seen him run zone a ton. Like, he can cut once and find a hole. He seems to have pretty good vision. Like, pretty great prospect. I think I haven't talked to you actually at all about Etienne, about Clemson's running back Travis Etienne, who is that much more of like a long speed jitterbug type player and not as physical. If you had to choose one for your NFL team, are you taking Harris?
Yeah, I think I would lean Harris because they're both pretty equal receiving wise. Maybe even Etienne is a little bit better receiver, maybe. But yeah, I think I would go with Harris just for the ability to break tackles and to, make something happen when nothing's there, that kind of thing. Even though ETN has the edge in terms of, the big play ability and the high end speed, I would give Harris the slight edge as the better prospect.
Okay, so let's talk about Travis Etienne, because that video hasn't posted yet. So I'm very familiar with Etienne. I haven't said this yet we haven't talked too much about college scouting. Like, I don't know, man. I didn't watch any college football this past year when it was happening. I'm watching now. I'm catching up. Like, I was kind of squeamish about the whole college football during coronavirus, unpaid labor, doing whatever. I mean, that we need to, like, it just sort of, I don't know. I was busy anyway, and I kind of didn't. So I actually don't have a great sense of what Travis Etienne's most recent season is like. Obviously, we all know how 2019 went, and what that Clemson team was able to do up until it couldn't do it anymore. Like, how would you characterize Etienne's season this year relative to last, and did it change what you think of him as a prospect?
I think it wasn't. He didn't have quite as good of a season as he did, the previous 2 years where he ran for, 1,500, 1,600 yards a year or whatever it was. He didn't have quite as good a season on the ground. I think he had a better year as a pass catcher. And so I think that improves his stock a little bit, him showing more of that ability as a pass catcher. I think he improved as a pass protector too, and that'll help him a little bit, but he didn't have quite as good of a year on the ground. And I think part of that, toward in the middle of the year when Lawrence was hurt and Uwe Ungalele was in before he started lighting people up, I think people were, trying to play the run a little bit more and stacking the box a little bit more. That may have hurt ETN a little bit. So overall, not quite as good of a year, but I wouldn't say that it's hurt him much in terms of draft stock in my mind.
Okay, so if you were, like, the thing that you're most excited about as far as Etienne goes as a prospect, I think you're saying home run hitter, long speed. Would you characterize his change of, sometimes the super jitterbug change of direction guys in college, it doesn't translate when you're playing against the better athletes. Would you put Etienne in the mode of like, oh no, he's still going to make a lot of pro tacklers miss too?
Yeah, I think he will still make a lot of guys miss, and having that lateral quickness and the change of direction ability, I think that will translate to the NFL for him. And even though he doesn't have it to the degree that Harris does, he does have some of that, the contact balance and the being able to break a tackle and find a way to stay on his feet after taking a hit and things like that. And I think he has enough of that to be, a good starter in the NFL.
Now, I'm putting words in your mouth. Let me just ask you the question. Why do I always do that? What weaknesses, things that you'd be concerned about if you're, we don't know where he's going to land yet. We're going to find out what kind of platoon he might potentially be in. I'm sure he'll be in some level. He'll have other running backs on the roster wherever he lands. And the question is just going to be the level of quality of those other running backs. Concerns right away. I would be, he's a 200-pound player probably. Like, I'm concerned about pass blocking. If he's got to play on third down a lot, he's a small guy. He better have that technique, and just generally being concerned about size.
Yeah. He's on the smaller end for a back, like 5'10", 205 around there, and 210 maybe. And I think the concern for me was, especially on inside runs, is being able to make something happen when it's not there. When the line doesn't block it well and it's an inside run, it typically he goes for no gain or maybe gets hit for a loss. He's not quite as good at trying to make something happen if guys are getting into the backfield on an inside run, and being able to hit the cutback lanes on say inside zone and find something there. And then, like you mentioned, the pass protection as well. I think he's gotten better at that, and especially like the mental side of it, of being able to pick up blitzers and things like that. But maybe the technique of being able to keep his head up and get his hands on the inside and hit the guy that way, he can still improve on that.
Sure.
Improving the technique in his side.
Right, he's also just small. Yeah, that's the point. Is right. Like sometimes you just worry the small kids who've never done it before suddenly like thrust into a case where they've got a 270-pound, defensive end.
Yeah.
It'll be an interesting challenge. Something you said about finding cutback lanes concerns me a little bit, because that should be his game. Like, if he's not going to find a cutback lane on inside zone, he's going to have trouble, because he's supposed to be all quickness. Did I read something into what you said that you didn't intend?
No, yeah, I think that, not always with him, but I think that's something that shows up that you see, instead of just jamming it up the middle when nothing's there, can you find that cutback lane? And he doesn't always find it. Sometimes he does, but not, you'd like to see him find it more, I'd say.
So, I mean, vision's really important. Like, what level of concern do you have about him? Vision?
Not a ton. I mean, in terms of inside runs, I think he's better with the gap scheme runs, like counter. He's got good vision and good patience there, and so I think eventually that can translate to inside zone too.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to the video, because I want some examples.
Yeah.
I want the good. I want the bad. I want to see whether, because in some respects, you'd say Travis Etienne is actually kind of the type of player the NFL is moving towards, right? It's completely a passing league. He's a very accomplished receiver. He's very quick out of routes. If he's precise in his route running, once he gets to the NFL, which I think you're saying he has been at Clemson, but like if he is that way in the NFL, he's gonna be a nightmare to cover. You're not gonna be able to cover him with a linebacker. He's too fast, too quick. So that's awesome, right? That's what we want, and it seems like at the very least that can be his role. But to get really excited about a running back for fantasy, we're also going to want him to be a running back. And so, like, he's going to have disadvantages as a running back. You're going to have to run inside a lot in the NFL. You can't get to the outside as much. And so that's going to be something's on my radar screen about, like, okay, is he seeing cutback lanes? Because he's going to need to use them.
Yeah. And I think an interesting thing about him too is that he's kind of a prototypical outside zone guy if he could get to one of those type of teams. But the interesting thing is Clemson didn't run a lot of outside zone, at least this past year. And, I watched 3 games of him today and really maybe saw them run it once or twice. So it's kind of interesting that I kind of feel like, and a lot of people are saying like, oh, he would be a great fit in an outside zone type scheme, but I thought it was funny that Clemson didn't really run it a whole lot.
Yeah, he's never really done it yet. But again, if he's got the skill, like, he's the quickest back in the draft. I think we're probably going to say that, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if he's got the skill, then hopefully the team that takes him will utilize that skill. So the last player, we wanted to talk about another Clemson kid, a wide receiver who's not usually, I don't think, listed among, this is another great wide receiver class that frankly for fantasy is just going to screw us even more, because there's going to be another flood of like 8 guys you're considering drafting who've never played in the league. And, there's 1,000 receivers in the league now who've got the potential to get you 100 yards in a given week.
Yeah.
But this kid could as well. I think you really like him. It's a Clemson receiver, Amari Rodgers.
Yeah, I think he's mostly seen as like a 3rd round guy, maybe a 2nd round guy now. But I really like him. I think he could end up being. I would love to see him on Green Bay. I mean, I think they could really do a lot with him. But he's probably a slot guy, and has got the speed, has got the top end speed, has got the quickness, and I think he's stronger than people may realize. People that have just kind of watched him casually. I think he has the break tackle ability and the strength to battle with some linebackers. If he's on a linebacker inside and needs to get physical, I think he's strong enough to do that. And I think he would really fit well in kind of mixing him in the jet sweep game and, getting him some manufactured touches and things like that. And I kind of the inside story with him and why I like him, maybe I'm a little bit biased, is I covered him when he played in high school. I mentioned I worked at the local TV station in Knoxville. He played at Knoxville Catholic High School, was really a great player on a great team. And the thing that stood out to me with him is his work ethic. Like his coach would say, the coach would be walking around school in the winter, just like on a Saturday, and someone's out at the football stadium, like on the stairs, and he's like, who broke into the stadium? Who's out there? And he goes up there, and it's Amari Rodgers wearing a weighted vest in the winter time, just running stairs at the stadium on a Saturday. And like, that's just that's just who he is that he loves the game and he's going to work for it. And his dad was the national championship quarterback at Tennessee, T. Martin. So he's got the bloodline, and his dad's a coach now, and with the Ravens now actually. And so so he just loves the game and he's into it. So I think he's going to transition to the pro game right away and jump right in. And he has the football IQ too to be able to pick things up. So I think he's a guy that's going to end up being maybe a better value than where he's drafted in my mind.
So I'm not sure how closely you track the Senior Bowl, nor am I sure, we haven't talked, you and I, that much about anything, but we haven't talked about like how much you value the Senior Bowl. But one thing that once you said, hey man, I'd like to talk about Amari Rodgers because I'm not sure you're going to get to him when you do receiver focused draft podcasts later. And I was like, oh, ye of little faith, but we might not. Amari Rodgers apparently ate a lot of guys' lunch at the Senior Bowl. Did you take note of that?
I didn't really follow it much,
okay.
But I didn't know that. But
yeah,
I think that's pretty cool if you're getting in there with some of the better guys in the country and having a chance to stand out. Then I think that teams will take notice of that. Yeah,
like so if you were to give me, I don't know, I do the NFL comp game all the time with the rookie skill guys, and then it always falls apart as soon as we see them play. But if you had a comp, I mean slot. 5'9" slot guys who are like 210. The 5'9" slot guys used to be 180. Randall Cobb, right? And now 5'9" slot guys that are 210. I go Deebo Samuel ? Question mark? Like I would love this kind of running back in a wide receiver's body is kind of interesting to me. But maybe Deebo might not quite be the right comp. Do you have a comp in mind for him?
I'm a terrible comp guy.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I do. I like the Deebo comp. I think that could be a good one. In kind of the, like you said, the running back in the slot, kind of a speed guy that's also got some strength. I'm trying to think who would be another guy.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, he's not the kinds of dudes who are acting like running backs in the wide receiver body. I mean, Ayuk on the same team, but he's a lot bigger. AJ Brown, he's a lot bigger. Chris Godwin to some degree is kind of like that, but maybe a little freakier and bigger of an athlete. But I mean, if Rodgers is that sort of, I think that's going to be the question. If he can be that sort of player, all three of the dudes I just met, or all four of the dudes I just mentioned, don't play exclusively in the slot. They can play all over. They're in, especially San Francisco, they're in Swiss Army type offenses where you never know where they're going to line up at any given time, and they can get the ball in any position, in any way as the primary, either the runner or the passer. If Rodgers falls into that category, which he'll have to prove, I don't think anybody's like clamoring saying he has to be a first round pick, but if he can get in that category, he'll be really interesting.
Definitely.
All right, Patrick. Well, a pleasure to have you aboard the ever-growing yacht where we have lots of room. So happy to have you. Don't touch the possum. Remember, folks, I would like you, first of all, just let's get on it right now because Patrick is going to be tweeting about draft prospects here going forward a lot. You can find him on Twitter. Follow him right now at Pat Murray Sports. And also, quite importantly, let's make a habit. We're going to be posting these videos. I think it's one this week, but I think we're going through prospects 2 a week from this point forward. So we're going to keep you very busy, and you will continue with your developing opinions on these things. It was a pleasure to get to meet you on the air, and hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Chris. And I'm excited to start getting these videos out. We'll have Travis Etienne next, and then we're going to jump on the wide receivers. So it should be fun.
And thank you so much for listening. I want to also thank today's sponsors. We had Felix Gray, we had Upstart, and we had First Leaf. 3 great sponsors. They've been with us for, 3 years, 4 years, a long time, all of them, which means many folks who listen to the show have already partaken of their wares and services. And if you think you might have a need and can use our promo codes, boy, that's how the show keeps going. I really appreciate all your support. Something I don't say very often, but if you want to leave us a nice rating wherever you listen to podcasts, maybe a 5-star, maybe even a review, because it does help us bubble up to the top of the charts. iTunes especially is useful, or whatever they call it now, Apple Podcasts. Leaving us a nice review does help. Thank you for that. All right, so I'm very excited that the YouTube channel is now back up and running. Patrick seems like a fine young man and definitely does a great job with the videos. Go watch that Najee Harris video. It's really good. And so excited to keep track of that, and also very excited for next week, because a lot of the work that we've done here over the past 2 months is going to come to fruition. We're going to start to get landing spots for some of these wide receivers and running backs, and maybe even some quarterbacks and tight ends by the time you next hear my voice. Now, the timing of the next show, I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do. I'm planning on Wednesday night. I've been putting these podcasts out late Wednesday night. The league year for 2021 for the NFL officially starts, I think, 4 p.m. Eastern, and that's when deals can become official, but there's a tampering period from Monday to Wednesday. My assumption is we're going to get enough stuff happen from Monday to Wednesday that I can just do a regular old Wednesday show. But if you don't see a Wednesday show, look for me on social media at Harris Football. You'll know why. It's because I'm waiting for Thursday, because I'm waiting for bigger deals to come along. If we have to wait for the fireworks, then I'll probably wait a day and have a guest, and we'll talk about the transactions on Thursday instead. So the time is a little flexible, but I will be here and very excited about it. And of course, on social media, talking about all the deals as well. Until then, thank you once again for listening. Your hat is awesome. I think I mentioned that off the top. I'll talk to you next week.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The closing theme is Say Yes by The Wellspring. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.